And we are rolling. Alex Answer here. It is April 13th in the year 2019. Investigations into war crimes in Afghanistan have been shot down. As we see a new storm coming to the United States, as we see the seasons changing, signs in the stars, signs in the species. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a few things. It is 4:43 in the morning here in the mountains of southern Colorado. Speaking of Colorado, in this video we're not going to be doing a featuring of the articles themselves, although I will be referencing things here and there. And it doesn't mean that I have the whole story or the answer. I could be taking a look at a headline, for example, and giving a unique OTB TV perspective that no other human is. That causes almost a spark to go off of inquisitive consciousness, thought, ideas, as others start also examining. So as we start looking at this short array of headlines, controversial Colorado gun law to begin January next year, 11 sheriffs willing to go to jail rather than enforce the new state law, the red flag law. That is, if anyone that goes to a judge about some issue at home regarding the potential sanity of someone that owns a gun, that a judge can order a county sheriff to take their guns. And one of the things that I've been talking about for a long time is the staged, managed reality that we're in which a conflict can be manufactured from the top down. And there's ways in which things can be staged within the human world to a certain degree without humans being aware of it, including those in politics, including those that are a part of the divide. Humans in their own consciousness, and this stands for many issues, maybe have a certain mindset that their thoughts are their own, for example, without realizing that they're on autopilot. This is just a template introduction to a variety of examples in which there's a divide amongst the population. Think about our society, others, those speaking English, those societies not speaking English, and divides within the population that are by design. Colorado's controversial red flag bill was signed into law by Governor Jared Polis on Friday. Half of this state is opposed to it. At a time in which civil war has been memeing, at a time in which there are forces of darkness attempting to bring such a reality in a manifestation. Here we have a situation to where many sheriffs don't want to enforce this because they would also be putting their own lives in danger, for one thing, amongst other things. It's also coming at a time in which we're seeing more suicides per capita in some of these regions, Colorado included, as well as some of the other states that are also starting to see similar statistics like Washington and Oregon. So me reporting this to you and other facts is not then leading to problem, reaction, solution, vote for this candidate, support this policy, be against this policy. It's more or less the reality of the fallen world from a spiritual perspective as a philosopher, looking outside the box as the observer, being in the world but not of the world. And so I'm thinking about increasing these style of reports and letting people know that these things are taking place. The last note that I'm making on this is that for people who have been watching my content for years, especially the last solar presentation, I even put it in 2013, and I'll make a separate video focusing just on that, right? How the elite use the solar cycle. My projections for the next solar cycle. Manufactured civil war over gun rights. Manufactured. They get the people fighting, and they come through the side door with the real weaponry, with the real enemy of the American people going into action, with the real takedown of our society manifesting as it actually is going to go down, not the Alex Jones fake news version of how it's going to go down. The Alex Jones disposition case, which I watched all 3 hours several times, people are going to take away what they want from that. Next, we're going to go into the article entitled A New Super Earth. But on this topic of Alex Jones, what we learn from the disposition is that he doesn't want to talk about InfoWars LLC. I like to have instrumental music more often. This is kind of a rare moment in which there's vocals on this particular track. Keep this relaxed here. But Alex Jones doesn't want to talk about InfoWars LLC. He'll talk about Free Systems LLC. See, that's the front. But when InfoWars LLC came up in the conversation, objection. The lawyers step up. We're not going to go down that road. Has InfoWars LLC, the lawyers for the Sandy Hook families ask, has InfoWars LLC ever received any money? Objection. What is InfoWars LLC? Objection. Right? And in addition to that, we also saw opposition to another line of questioning regarding some of the sources for Alex Jones. Claimed certain people gave him certain bits of information that he ran with regarding some of his theories, but he says that he signed a confidentiality agreement with the CIA. And the lawyer for the Sandy Hook families asked him if he can produce that document, at least on the side, for him to see that. And Alex Jones says yes. Right? It's the small details that come out years later, after years of denial. And like I said 10 years ago and 15 years ago, first there's denial, then they come up with some sort of psychological way to go along with it. I was describing another demographic of America then. Now, in this controlled opposition demographic, first they denied he had ties to the government. Now they're saying that there is a white hat, good shadow government fighting the deep state as they manufacture this comic book G.I. Joe understanding of the shadowy figures operating behind the curtains, the Wizard of Oz in government today, right? They've made a joke out of that type of investigation. Those types of investigations are important. What they allege is the deep state. But by making it that term and by making it political, it's what Alex Jones would call the turd in the punch bowl. Now, who's going to want to drink out of that truth about that day that got us into these wars? It's hard to cover stories like this because it validates so much of what I said. Let's go to it now. Yes, I'm should have a mouse for each computer. Um, White House, ICC, Afghanistan. This is kind of hard to read, but I told myself, instead of hold this in all day, we're going to go into covering this. The worst thing about it is some of these vocal tracks are going to be copyrighted. ICC drops investigation of alleged U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan. On a side note, computers seem to be getting slower on another level. And robotics and technology is into the conversation, yet it's related to this article. Let me just read this. The International Criminal Court dropped plans on Friday to investigate alleged war crimes of U.S. military and intelligence personnel in Afghanistan. It's just a lot of. I've been saying for years that they're not counting the bodies, and that there's years of sexual violence that's been used against the population, which people don't talk about. I don't see women talk about within this nation. And then we get into the idea of how much have we actually progressed in the last 1,000 years, and how much of it is more of a front, kind of like yoga pants and leggings, things like that. Something that's there to, it's part of the costume. It's part of the projection. It's part of the projection of spirituality. A lot of yoga studios today. I also find it tragic that more people will like up an Alex Ansary with a little bit of fiery emotion, ranting about something like that at a street corner. Me talking about that. But I put together nearly 300 slides about the sun, and it's as important to people as leftover wrapping from a McDonald's burger right before you throw it in the garbage. Just knowing this and sitting in this reality, in this knowing, that's so much of what I've dedicated my life to. The truth and other things, investigations, taking certain lines of thought and logic beyond the fast food McDonald's speed or rate that it is for other people, and giving some things some deep thought, a lifetime of thought, and feeling the frustration of the robotics and the algorithms that are against our growth and helping this information reach the people, but also the people that have been turned into machines. And the machine-like way in which people are programmed to judge us for not being like others, for being outside the box, for being different, for not having the same value system. I live in a world where even on those lines regarding the sun, they don't come up with the same dots or connections that I have. It ultimately threatens the power structure. It ultimately threatens the archons. And this is a point that I'm going to continue to make as time goes on, that the information that I'm trying to teach you and others about the sun can help free us from their control. Those of you that are looking away from the knowledge about the sun, but are also looking at energy attacks and things of that nature, you're making a mistake. You're making a mistake from not looking deeper at the elemental forces of nature while pursuing your own spirituality. It's not a standalone spirituality with someone in a yoga pose in a dense population center. I've always spoken against the false idea of spirituality that lives off the bones of the dying world. The world is changing very rapidly and very quickly at this time. And so the old ways of doing things need to come up for renewal. And the sun is going to be a driving force, like it or not, in this change, in this transition. So Trump has said the following quote, and so people that support Trump support this mentality. They don't have to scream or shout. How could someone like me be befriended by any individuals that believe that there shouldn't be any investigation into war crimes in Afghanistan? In fact, there were people saying that Trump was going to reopen a investigation into that day that led to these wars. And I said, no, that's not the truth. That's not the way this works. That's not the person that he is. Does this sound like that kind of a person? Quote, this is a major international victory, not only for the patriots, but for the rule of law. We welcome this decision. The White House said, in part, since the creation of the ICC, the United States has consistently declined to join the court because of its broad, unaccountable powers, the threat it poses to American national sovereignty. This report doesn't get into the sexual violence. And so you have people that have been raped literally in front of their parents. Even Alex Jones used to talk about things like this. And yet he has a support of people that at one point were asking for things like that to stop. And they created circumstances and they have created levels of immigration and disinformation at the same time that has eliminated what compassion there was in the past for victims of war. And so there's a mind control taking place that people that are into the topic of mind control, they don't talk about the mind control behind the race war theology. And those that get into aliens, they don't get into how this is an alien agenda. Hell, there's a book by Jim Mars called Alien Agenda. But I'm talking about the alien agenda to use humans to cull a certain amount of the population of easily marginalized humans, especially after 9/11. It is an alien agenda. I will go to the grave saying that. I will go to the grave being against the reptilian, dark side, dark grid, archonic agenda to cull millions to billions of the Earth population by the year 2100. I see their agenda. I see their dark vision in a world of billions in which I stand alone. I stand alone. I live in a world of billions. I stand against the silence of billions. I have people, unfortunately, come against me. And it's all in relation to what I've dedicated my life to. I don't go out traveling around the world to luxurious places or attempting to live a double life. And there's certain things that I don't cover on this channel because it's too traumatic. What I just read you was snippets of an article basically saying and validating what I've said to you for years. They're not counting the bodies. This isn't over yet. This is about a calling. This isn't so much about religion. This is about ethnicity and ethnicities that are in some of those regions, in those countries. What does that mean for those that are within the United States that bear that blood, that are already marginalized, that are already alone? And see, I can see the nature of the mind control that people that are into mind control and the supernatural and these types of things, they don't take it to that level because they're not able to see their own programming. They can't see themselves in the light that they need to see themselves. And that's a very frustrating thing in the situation. But in the end, there's a reason why I've concluded that this is a hell realm to a certain degree. It's one of the higher of the hell realms, but a new super Earth is the next article that we're going to go into. But the leftover feeling from that last article, which I can't even I'm not going to continue with more articles, but like the weight of that knowledge, and we're at that level now, and that this is the thinking in so many. And there at one point there were people that were carrying signs saying investigate the day that led to these wars. You can fast forward and have those same people transform into new people, saying that those lives never matter, don't matter, that there shouldn't be investigations into innocent lives lost just simply because they were born. And the magnitude of what this means for the future of this country, for people that were born different, that didn't have any control over what they were named. That's all theoretical, that on a soul level we pick our parents. On a practical level, hey, we didn't choose this. We were just born. Everything else is just theoretical. And I love the theoretical, that everything happens for a reason and blah, blah, blah. We're not victims, karma, everything, spiritual all the time. But yet on just a practical level, without taking it there, right? It could be argued that we didn't choose this. That people were just born. That people aren't automatically perceivably evil or good, or perceivably coming in with good karma or negative karma based on, the color of their skin, but that they were just born. And yet we're cast down into this world of musical chairs where we're literally witnessing millions die in a short amount of time, and a system stepping back to something like Germany 1938 and having its own Reichstag fire. People literally saying that Donald Trump was going to investigate the event that led to these wars, was literally against going in. But now that they're already there, right, let's not investigate war crimes. Let's not investigate sexual assault. Let's marginalize and bully people that are asking us to look deeper at those things. And so there's a reason why it's difficult to see much of a future as society continues on this track. There's nothing the left has done to show that's any different, like mainstream left institutions, to show that it generally cares about those people that are suffering, or people that are suffering from these types of revelations, seeing how the wars are expanding. It's a very sad state of affairs, and it doesn't mean that there aren't people out there in the left and maybe some elements of the right. Um, it doesn't mean that those people. It doesn't mean that good people aren't out there. They're out there, but people are easily misled over cliffs. People are easily misled over cliffs. People are easily attached to their ego. Through in the fallen world and the duality, they've allowed this type of good evil duality to be applied to politics, to be applied to race, to be applied to skin tone. And so the nature of the true human being is to be in a suffering state. Truly, the true nature of our place in the cosmos, humanity's place in the cosmos, is in a very dark place in space. That came to me when I was bathing in town a few days ago under the hot water, and thinking about almost spirit crying out from the water to those of us with the inner ear to hear, kind of like the princess from Fantasia crying out for help. In this case, crying out with a message. This isn't our home here. We've been taken. In this fractured soul paradigm that we're in as we fell back into Earth, and we're trying to find our way out as the Earth itself is a hostage. And so that type of larger reality, generations upon generations upon generations, is going to provide the magnetic, energetic backdrop to the relationships, the wars, and the race war, ethnic callings. And that machine serves the archons. There's also another movie that I watched recently called Demon Rook on vudu.com. You can find it for free, so I will often promo. I never did this before, but now they're putting out lots of mainstream movies for free that those websites don't have to pay a lot for the licensing, so you don't really get the great stuff, the really popular stuff, but plenty of obscure cult films including some with supernatural themes, come up. So I can mention this here and there in a YouTube video of mine without playing a clip. You can go over there on your own if you feel like watching a free movie that is throwing some ads. It's called Demon Rook, Rook. And the kid is drawing these entities, and these entities come to life. So it's called a demon in this. We'll call it an archon. And it manifests in the small town. And as it manifests in the smoke, kind of like plasma, there's also some symbolism with the sun there. I think it's a connection between the sun and the archons. When the sun is more active, the archonic influence over human behavior is stronger because of the drop in alpha waves. A recent mainstream study documents the drop in alpha waves in human consciousness by 60% that can put someone into a partial trance state. So for some people, while there's a potential for consciousness expansion, if they're intending it or acting in a way to bring that about, others could end up possessed. Going back to maybe subconscious concerns that people have, because I know that in the next couple of years, in the 2020s, that we're likely to see more shootings in Colorado and political violence and things that are based around the manufacturer divide coming out of Washington and 2022 leading to 2023 and whatever's going to come about from the results of the next election. If, for example, he loses the next election, right, there could be a blowback that is by design ready to go, like pulling the trigger of an actual gun. As we look at the projections for solar cycle 25, they are now out. You can read about it at spaceweather.com. We are looking at a deep solar minimum. And then after this deep solar minimum, they're looking at coming out of the minimum and into the solar maximum around 2023. And remember, during a deep minimum, we are more vulnerable to the effects of powerful solar flares, solar wind, coronal mass ejections, all around solar activity. We are more vulnerable to that type of geomagnetic influx. That means our brain waves, that means our emotional states. And I've had my own deep spiritual epiphanies in past solar minimums. And I'm focused on that right now, letting go of elements of the past and moving forward. Today, I'm recording this video after several days of taking some additional time off as multiple geomagnetic storms come in each day in a row. And the type of like lethargic, like feeling that it leaves, tiredness, but also deep thought, also heightened emotions. And then as the solar activity calms down, a burst of energy. And so seeing the things that I'm talking about, seeing that I produce a literal 3-hour and 39-minute video on the sun days before back-to-back solar activity. And wondering how many of the audience members that also track solar activity picked up on that detail. That I put out that video to you just days before back-to-back solar activity. How many of you that talk about the paranormal or the supernatural also look at spaceweather.com and make that connection to where you're having more of those encounters or the really crazy stuff's taking place in others in society, things that you're witnessing when the planetary K index is on, when it's on, so to speak. And so I'm seeing a lot of confirmation of this. So this article here is talking about this new Earth, tiny spacecraft speed toward the planet Proxima in an illustration of the Breakthrough Starshot initiative. Astronomers now think that Proxima b has a sibling, a super Earth that may orbit the same red star just 4 light years away. A planet at least 1.3 times as massive as the Earth, that's perhaps warm enough for life as we know it to thrive on its surface. Scientists identified that planet called Proxima Centauri b by studying how its gravity tugs on Proxima or Centauri and causes the star to wobble. And there's some interesting pictures here, some artist renditions. So at what point do we stop imagining? At what point do we stop dreaming? Because the flatter psyops comes from the archons, who should be telling us that we shouldn't be dreaming inside and having spiritual connections with planetary bodies outside of our solar system or outside of our immediate space, like right here. Who's to say that this is where it's at? Who's to say that nothing is real? Look at how this false reality on the internet, how they want to project everything is fake and nothing is real. Everything is fake and nothing is real. Look at how even technology would want to auto-suggest that you be programmed with negativity about myself, instead of actually hearing out the most basic ideas of what I've been talking about for over 10 years. The world can easily marginalize the guy that's different as crazy and threatening and a weirdo. That's like low class. That's like the low level of human expression. It actually takes something from humanity to go, well, there's a person that someone under certain circumstances didn't become their environment, but did something else with their life. And there's a lot of people in today's day and age that want to take that away from some of us that have actually gone through shit that others haven't. Levels of marginalization and the fear that comes with living in a world during a time of war, in which some types of wars and occupations and genocides are clearly going to affect some humans more than others, based on the kind of blood being spilled. And it's like, this is like the ultimate trip to be in the human experience, to see such a low level of empathy, such a rise of the illusions of separation, as if we've gone nowhere for thousands of years, as if the idea of progress is only something that the individual attains. Individual progress, spiritual progress. But the idea of like civilization progressing, what? So it can be a more effective killing machine? Then what's the point of civilization? So we can go off and commit war crimes, rape women overseas, get away with it, and be no prosecution? Oh, hell, the civilization that will not be prosecuted for its crimes. How's that spiritual? How do we strike a yoga pose with the leggings to that? How do we call that the consciousness shift? How do we say that this is the world that on a collective level has shifted to the 5D? How are there spiritual posers amongst us that would more easily deceive us towards darkness than the true light? I enjoy bringing you these free flows and asking you to consider certain things. I think that is going to do it. I think that is going to do it. There are some other articles here that I could get into about Facebook sending mind control through its virtual reality headset, but I think that is going to do it. I want to thank those of you that have been supporting me all these years. I have to face the fact that reality is reality. That as long as I'm going to be speaking this truth in this body, and certain things are already behind me, things that I've done, videos that I've made, as if it's some sort of like, criminal act or something. Um, the videos that I have made, the topics that I have covered have marginalized me. I've made my bed and I sleep in it. And I wouldn't change it for the world because it's a fallen world. I want to thank David Smith, your comment and donation, but specifically letting me know what touches your heart. I appreciate that when people, and they leave me a little note, this is what it is that I'm really vibing to. Alex answering. There is a video that I'm going to be uploading to VHX, right? So those of you that are supporters at my on-demand channel for $5.95 per month, it is the future, folks, beyond YouTube as they erase more and more of us. I want to thank the several dozen of you that are there, also on Patreon. I want to thank those of you that are there. But there is a new video that will be available on VHX later on today. Uh, Later on, at the end of the month, at the end of April, leading into May, my goal is to have over a half dozen new videos at outsidethebox.vhx.tv as I go from April to May. This is already like a difficult time psychologically on people as we go from spring into summer. Also for myself and the things that I go through living here off the grid in the dark ages of Colorado, I'm fighting my own fight. And there's the inner fight, and then there's the act of bringing this knowledge to you. And there's the balance. There's the balance of life, of force, of the elements themselves. Till next time, it is 5:18 in the morning as we start our day. I'm Alex Hansen reminding you the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within.